Have you ever felt overwhelmed by the endless stream of thoughts in your mind? Those moments when worries swirl around like a storm, making it hard to find peace or focus. Maybe you've been stuck in that place where your mind races with fears about the future, doubts about yourself, or regrets about the past. If that sounds familiar, then this reflection is exactly for you. I want you to know, you're not alone. Many of us face this silent battle every day, caught in the maze of our own thoughts, sometimes anxious, sometimes confused, sometimes simply lost. If you've ever wished for a calm in the storm, a way to step out of the whirlwind inside your head, then stay with me for a few minutes. Because what I'm about to share could change the way you see your mind and your life. There's a quiet power waiting for you, a hope that doesn't depend on how strong or steady you feel. And that power comes from trusting in God, even when your thoughts don't seem to make sense or when your heart feels heavy. It's not by accident that you're here right now. God has something to say to you, a word of encouragement, a promise of peace, and a gentle invitation to lean on Him. You see, our minds are powerful but sometimes tricky places. They can either be our greatest allies or our harshest enemies. When we let our thoughts spiral, they can pull us into fear, confusion, or despair. But when we learn to trust God, we find a way to quiet that storm and anchor ourselves in something unshakable. This reflection isn't about pretending everything is perfect or that your struggles don't matter. It's about facing those thoughts honestly and learning how to hand them over to God so they don't control you. Imagine what it would be like to stop fighting your mind and start resting in the love and wisdom of the one who holds your future. Over the next several minutes, I'll walk with you through a journey from being lost in thoughts to finding true peace by trusting God. We'll explore biblical examples of people who faced mental battles, practical ways to strengthen your faith every day, and how to deal with common struggles like anxiety, uncertainty, and spiritual exhaustion. Most importantly, I want to help you discover that God's timing and care are always at work, even when it feels like nothing is changing. So please, don't click away. Give yourself this time. Let these words speak to your heart, and if you feel moved, take them as an invitation to start trusting God more deeply today. You don't have to carry your worries alone. There is a loving God ready to guide you through the maze of your mind and into peace. Remember, this is not just another message. It's a conversation with you, right where you are in your real life. And as you listen, I encourage you to open your heart and ask God to meet you here, in this very moment. Because when we trust God, even in the midst of our busiest and loudest thoughts, we begin to live with a peace that goes beyond understanding. And that peace can change everything. Stay with me, and let's take this step together. Imagine your mind as a dense forest shrouded in thick fog. You can see the path right in front of you, but beyond that, everything is blurred and uncertain. Your thoughts can feel just like that fog, swirling around, making it hard to find your way or see what lies ahead. Sometimes those thoughts aren't just random. They form a maze that traps you in fear, doubt, and confusion. You might find yourself circling the same worries over and over, wondering if you'll ever find peace or clarity. This experience is more common than you think. Our minds are incredible. They help us solve problems, dream, plan, and connect with others. But when left unchecked, they can become prisons. Negative thoughts can take control, convincing us that we are alone, powerless, or stuck in a situation with no way out. The harder we try to push those thoughts away, the louder they seem to get, pulling us deeper into that fog. But there's a way out. Trusting God is like finding a clear path through that dense forest. It's the light that cuts through the fog, giving direction and calm to a restless mind. Trust is not just a feeling. It's an active choice to believe in something greater than ourselves, even when our thoughts tell us otherwise. It's choosing to place our confidence in God's wisdom, love, and timing, rather than our own fears and doubts. The Bible speaks beautifully about this. In Proverbs 3:5-6 we read, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight." These verses don't say that life will be without challenges or confusing thoughts. Instead, they remind us that we don't have to rely solely on our own minds, which can often be clouded and unreliable. When we surrender our understanding and trust God completely, He promises to guide us clearly. Trusting God also means accepting that we won't always have all the answers. Sometimes the fog won't lift immediately, and the path may seem unclear. But faith invites us to walk forward anyway, knowing that God is with us, even when we can't see the way. It's a daily practice, a choice we renew every morning when our minds start racing with worries about the day ahead. This isn't always easy. Our culture often tells us to think positively or just snap out of it. But real peace goes deeper than positive thinking. It comes from a relationship with God that transforms the way we view our thoughts. Instead of battling or fearing them, we learn to offer them up to God, trusting that He is bigger than any anxiety, doubt, or confusion we face. This trust creates space for peace, even in the middle of chaos. It helps us rest in the knowledge that God's plan is good and His timing is perfect. When we let go of trying to control everything with our minds, we open ourselves to receive God's peace, a peace that the world cannot give or take away. As you think about this, imagine the relief of stepping out of that foggy forest and onto a well-lit path. Imagine not being trapped by your thoughts anymore, but walking confidently, guided by a loving God who knows every twist and turn ahead. That's the kind of freedom trust can bring. And this transformation isn't just a distant hope. It's a promise we see in the Bible, reflected in the lives of people who trusted God in the hardest moments. Their stories remind us that even when the mind is overwhelmed, faith can be the anchor that holds us steady. So as we continue, keep this image in your mind, the foggy forest that represents your swirling thoughts, and the clear path that trust in God offers. This journey we're on isn't about erasing your thoughts or pretending they don't exist. It's about learning how to navigate them with God's help, so you never feel lost or alone again. Throughout the Bible, we find remarkable stories of people who faced mental struggles much like ours, moments when their minds were filled with worry, fear, and uncertainty. And yet, through trusting God, they found strength and peace. These examples are not just ancient tales. They are living lessons for us today, showing us how to bring our own tangled thoughts into God's light. Take David, for example. Before he was king, he was a young shepherd boy, often chased and hunted by enemies. We read in the Psalms how his mind wrestled with fear and despair. In Psalm 23, David writes about walking through the valley of the shadow of death, a place of deep darkness and danger. Yet, even in that shadow, he declares, "I will fear no evil, for you are with me." David's mind was not free from struggle, but his trust in God's presence gave him courage. When your thoughts feel overwhelming, remember David's example. He didn't ignore his fears. He brought them honestly before God and found peace in His guidance. Then there's Moses, a man chosen by God to lead the Israelites out of slavery, a task so immense that his mind must have been filled with doubt and anxiety. Imagine standing before a vast desert, leading millions of people through uncertainty. At the Red Sea, with the enemy closing in, Moses could have been lost in panic. Yet, God's promise kept him focused. Moses trusted God to make a way where there seemed to be none. This teaches us that even when we face situations that seem impossible or frightening, trusting God can open doors we never expected. It's a reminder that your mind doesn't have to be the battlefield where fear wins. Instead, it can become the place where faith takes root. Daniel's story is another powerful example. Living in exile, surrounded by danger and opposition, Daniel could have easily been consumed by fear and confusion. But instead, he chose to pray and trust God no matter the circumstances. When he was thrown into the lion's den, his mind must have raced with fear, yet his faith held firm. Daniel's trust transformed his fear into courage and his confusion into peace. When your thoughts are trying to trap you in fear or worry, think about Daniel, how he chose to trust God even when the stakes were highest. Perhaps right now, you're facing challenges that feel overwhelming. Maybe your mind is crowded with what-ifs, regrets, or fears about the future. Maybe you're stuck replaying conversations, decisions, or mistakes over and over. You might feel like your thoughts are a storm you can't control. If that's the case, I want to ask you, have you ever tried to hand those thoughts over to God? Have you ever paused to say, Lord, I don't have all the answers. I'm scared, but I'm choosing to trust you anyway. This is where the stories of David, Moses, and Daniel meet your reality. They didn't have perfect lives or easy minds, but they had a choice to trust God in the middle of their mental battles. You have that same choice today. So what does that mean for you practically? How can you apply these examples in your own life, in your own mind? First, it means acknowledging your thoughts without judgment. Don't beat yourself up for feeling anxious or confused. Like David, bring those feelings honestly before God. Prayer isn't about having perfect words or feelings. It's about opening your heart and inviting God in, even when your mind feels messy. Second, remember that trusting God often means taking a step forward even when you don't see the full path, just like Moses did. When your thoughts keep telling you, I can't, or this is too hard, remind yourself that God is making a way, even if you can't see it yet. This doesn't mean ignoring reality, but holding on to hope and faith as you move through uncertainty. Third, build a habit of turning to God regularly, as Daniel did. When your mind is crowded, find moments of stillness to pray and listen. It can be as simple as a few deep breaths with a prayer like, God, help me trust you now. Over time, these small acts of faith will shape your mind and heart, making it easier to trust even when thoughts try to pull you away. Finally, remember that you're not alone in this journey. Just as these biblical figures leaned on God, you can also lean on your community, friends, family, or fellow believers who can support you when your thoughts feel overwhelming. These stories and applications are more than inspiration. They are a blueprint for transforming your mental struggle into a place of faith. You don't have to fight your thoughts alone. Trusting God opens the door to peace and strength that goes beyond what your mind can imagine. As we reflect on the stories of David, Moses, and Daniel, one thing becomes clear. Trust in God is not just a one-time decision, it's a way of life. It's something we build day by day, moment by moment, through simple but powerful habits that shape our hearts and minds. If you want to move from being lost in your thoughts to living anchored in God's peace, developing daily practices is essential. One of the most profound ways to do this is through prayer. Prayer is more than a list of requests or moments when we feel desperate for answers. It's a conversation, a two-way dialogue between you and God. When your mind starts to spiral with worries or doubts, prayer becomes your refuge. It's a sacred space where you can honestly share your fears and frustrations and then pause to listen. This listening is often the hardest part because it requires quieting the noise inside and opening your heart to God's presence. But over time, this practice softens the grip of anxious thoughts and replaces them with peace that comes from knowing you are heard and loved. Reading and meditating on the Bible is another daily practice that transforms your mind. The Bible isn't just an ancient book, it's God's living word, full of truth and wisdom for every situation. When your thoughts are dark or confusing, immersing yourself in Scripture renews your perspective. It reminds you of God's promises, His faithfulness, and His power to guide you. Meditation here doesn't mean just reading quickly, it means slowing down, reflecting on a verse, and letting it sink deep into your heart. It's like planting seeds of hope and trust that grow stronger each day. Gratitude might sound simple, but it has incredible power to shift your mindset. When your thoughts focus on what's wrong, what's missing, or what you fear, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. but intentionally giving thanks, even for small things, can change how you see your life. Gratitude opens your eyes to God's blessings that are already present, reminding you that He is working even when you don't notice. This doesn't mean ignoring pain or struggle. It means choosing to recognize God's goodness alongside the difficulties. Obedience is another key part of strengthening your faith. Sometimes, trusting God means taking steps forward without fully understanding the path. It means obeying His guidance, even when it feels uncertain or uncomfortable. This obedience is a powerful way to prove your trust, because it shows that you believe God knows what's best, even when your mind questions or fears. Each act of obedience builds confidence in God's care and breaks the hold of anxious or confusing thoughts. Finally, community plays an essential role in this journey. Trust grows stronger when shared with others. Being part of a community of believers offers support, encouragement, and accountability. When your mind feels overwhelmed, friends who understand your faith can help remind you of God's promises and pray with you. Fellowship also creates a safe place to be vulnerable, to share your struggles without fear of judgment. This connection is a reminder that you're not alone and that God often works through the love and prayers of others. Bringing these practices into your daily life isn't about perfection or checking off a list. It's about creating rhythms that help you lean on God more naturally and consistently. Think of it as building a foundation, strong and steady, so that when your thoughts threaten to pull you under, you have something solid to hold on to. Imagine waking up each morning with a simple prayer, inviting God to guide your day and calm your mind. Picture taking a moment during the day to read a verse that reminds you of His promises. Think about pausing to thank Him for the small blessings, even when challenges come. Picture yourself choosing to obey God's voice, even when the way isn't clear, and feeling the peace that comes from that trust. Imagine sharing your journey with a close friend or a small group, knowing that you have a team walking beside you. These daily habits don't eliminate difficult thoughts overnight, but they transform how you respond to them. They help you catch yourself before you spiral, remind you where your hope lies, and bring you back to a place of trust and peace. As you build these practices, remember that faith is a journey, not a destination. There will be days when your mind feels calm and focused, and days when the fog returns. That's okay. What matters is that you keep returning to God, offering your thoughts and fears to Him, and choosing to trust again. It's important to acknowledge that even with faith and daily practices, the struggles that weigh heavily on your mind don't simply disappear overnight. Anxiety, the agonizing wait for answers, the exhaustion that comes from trying to control the uncontrollable. These are very real challenges many face every day. And it's okay to admit that. You are not failing or weak because your mind feels overwhelmed or restless. These feelings are part of the human experience, especially when life's uncertainties press in hard. Anxiety can make your thoughts race in endless loops of what if and why me. It can steal your peace and cloud your ability to trust God's plan. But the Bible offers comfort for this very struggle. Philippians 4:6-7 encourages us not to be anxious about anything but to bring everything to God in prayer. It promises that when we do this, God's peace, beyond what we can understand, will guard our hearts and minds. Imagine that. A peace so profound it acts like a shield, protecting your mind from the storm of anxious thoughts. Waiting is another challenge that tests our trust. Whether you're waiting for healing, for a relationship to be restored, for a job, or for a sense of direction, the waiting room of life can feel endless and lonely. But the Bible reminds us in Matthew 6:34 not to worry about tomorrow because each day has enough trouble of its own. This verse is not about ignoring the future, but about focusing on the present with faith, trusting that God's timing is perfect. Waiting doesn't mean doing nothing. It means holding on with hope and patience, even when the clock seems slow and the silence loud. Spiritual exhaustion is perhaps one of the most silent and painful struggles. When your soul is tired, even the simplest thoughts become heavy burdens. You might feel distant from God, unsure if your faith is strong enough to carry you through. But Romans 8:28 offers powerful reassurance that God works all things for the good of those who love Him, even when we can't see how. This promise is a lifeline, reminding us that our weariness is not ignored by God. Instead, He is working behind the scenes, weaving a story of hope and restoration. It's vital to understand that experiencing these challenges doesn't mean your faith is weak. It means you are human, and your mind and spirit are in need of care and renewal. When these feelings rise, it's okay to be honest with God and yourself. The path to restoration begins when you acknowledge your pain instead of hiding it, when you let God meet you right where you are, with all your doubts and fears. In these moments, the first step is to stop fighting your thoughts alone. Instead, turn them over to God through prayer and surrender. Remind yourself gently that you don't have to have it all figured out, and it's okay to rely on God's strength instead of your own. When your mind feels like a storm, picture God as your anchor, holding you steady, even when the waves crash around you. Another key part of overcoming these struggles is to practice self-compassion. Speak kindly to yourself, just as you would to a dear friend who is hurting. Recognize that healing and trust grow gradually, like seeds taking time to sprout. Celebrate small victories, the moments when you pause to pray, when you choose faith over fear, when you reach out for support. These are steps forward. And speaking of support, never underestimate the power of community during these tough times. Sharing your struggles with trusted friends, mentors, or a faith community can lighten your burden. Others can pray with you, remind you of God's promises, and help carry your load when you feel weak. Remember, you were never meant to walk this journey alone. Through it all, keep your focus on God's promises. Verses like Philippians 4:6-7, Matthew 6:34, and Romans 8:28 are not just words on a page. They are lifelines thrown to you in moments of despair. Cling to them, speak them aloud. Let them remind you that God's peace is available, that His timing is perfect, and that He is working for your good even when life feels confusing or painful. No matter what you face, whether it's anxiety that steals your peace, the frustration of waiting, the exhaustion of spiritual battles, you are invited to bring those struggles before God. Trust that He hears you, cares for you, and has the power to restore your mind and heart. When we struggle with our thoughts and anxieties, one of the hardest things to accept is the way God's timing works. It's so different from ours. We want answers now. We want clarity immediately. We want relief to come quickly, especially when our minds are spinning with worries. But God's timing isn't about how fast we want things to happen. It's about when He knows we're ready and when His purpose can be fully accomplished in our lives. Think about the story of Abraham, a man who waited for years for God's promise to come true. The promise of a child, a legacy, and a blessing that would shape generations. That waiting was long, full of doubt and questions, yet Abraham learned to trust God's timing even when it seemed impossible. His story reminds us that waiting isn't wasted time. It's part of the process where faith is refined and character is built. Joseph's life also teaches us about God's perfect timing. Sold into slavery by his brothers, falsely accused and imprisoned, Joseph's journey was full of hardship. Yet through every delay and setback, God was working behind the scenes to prepare Joseph for a future where he would save many lives. When Joseph finally saw the fulfillment of God's plan, he understood that every waiting season was necessary for the bigger picture. Sometimes, the waiting feels like a prison, but God uses those seasons to shape us, teach us patience, and prepare us for what's next. Even the people of Israel, wandering in the desert for 40 years, demonstrate the challenge and purpose of God's timing. They longed for the promised land, yet God knew they needed time to grow and learn trust. That long wait wasn't punishment, it was preparation. While they waited, God provided, guided, and shaped them into a people ready to step into their destiny. What does this mean for you when your thoughts keep pulling you toward impatience or frustration. It means you can rest in the truth that God is working, even when you don't see it. It means you can let go of the pressure to have everything figured out right now. Instead, you can choose to trust that God's timing is perfect and that He is preparing you in ways that your mind can't yet understand. While waiting, it's important to stay active in your faith, not passive or resigned, but patient and hopeful. Waiting doesn't mean sitting still and doing nothing. It means walking forward with trust, taking small steps of obedience and faith, even when the path isn't clear. It means keeping your heart open to what God wants to teach you during this season. And here is something powerful. God isn't just working on the circumstances outside of you. He's working inside you. In every moment of waiting, He is shaping your character, strengthening your faith, and teaching you to rely on Him more deeply. Sometimes the greatest growth happens not when we reach the destination, but while we're on the journey. So when your mind starts racing with impatience or doubt, remind yourself that waiting is part of God's plan for your life. It's not a delay, it's a divine process. Trusting God's timing frees you from the heavy burden of needing to control everything and allows you to rest in His peace. Picture yourself walking through that foggy forest again. The path may still be unclear, but now you have a light guiding you. God's perfect timing lighting the way. Even when the fog doesn't lift immediately, you know that each step you take is part of a greater story, written by a God who loves you and knows what's best. Embracing God's timing transforms your thoughts. It moves you from frustration and anxiety to peace and patience. It teaches you that some things are beyond your control, and that's okay, because you have a God who holds the future. As you continue on this journey, remember that waiting with hope is a form of trust. It's saying, God, I don't see the whole picture, but I believe you are faithful. That trust becomes a refuge for your mind, a safe place where anxiety can't take hold. As we learn to trust God's perfect timing, one of the most powerful tools we have is prayer. Prayer is much more than a routine or a ritual. It's the heartbeat of our relationship with God. It's how we stay connected, how we bring our thoughts, fears, and hopes directly to the one who understands us completely. When your mind feels crowded and restless, prayer becomes the place where you can find rest and clarity. Many of us think of prayer as talking at God, listing out our needs or worries. But real prayer is a conversation. It's a two-way dialogue where you speak, and God listens. And sometimes He speaks back in quiet ways, through peace in your heart, through scripture, or through the wisdom of others. This kind of prayer takes patience and openness. It means slowing down enough to listen, not just to speak. When you practice this deep, consistent prayer, you're training your mind to focus on God rather than the chaos of your thoughts. Prayer is also a refuge in times of anxiety and confusion. When your thoughts threaten to overwhelm you, closing your eyes and bringing your concerns before God creates a space of peace. It's like stepping into a shelter in the middle of a storm. You're not alone. You have a safe place to land. And in that safety, your mind can begin to rest, knowing that God is in control. One helpful practice is keeping a prayer journal or diary. Writing down your prayers helps organize your thoughts and makes your conversation with God more intentional. It allows you to look back and see how God has answered prayers, reminding you of His faithfulness even when your mind forgets. This simple act can deepen your trust and give you confidence to keep praying, even when answers seem delayed. Prayer is not only a private experience, it's also powerful when shared with others. The Bible tells us in Matthew 18:20 that where 2 or 3 gather in God's name, He is there with them. Praying together creates a sense of community and support that strengthens your faith. It reminds you that you're not carrying your thoughts and struggles alone. Others stand with you, lifting you up, speaking God's promises over you. Another vital part of prayer is gratitude. When you pray with thanksgiving, even in difficult times, you shift your focus from what's missing or frightening to what God has already done and continues to do in your life. Gratitude opens the door for peace and joy to enter, softening the grip of worry and doubt. In this way, prayer becomes a powerful practice that transforms your mind. It helps you recognize when your thoughts are leading you away from trust and gently redirects you back to God. Over time, deep and consistent prayer builds a foundation of faith that nothing can shake. It changes the way you see yourself, your struggles, and God's presence in every moment. Imagine your mind like a garden. Prayer is the water and sunlight that nourish the seeds of faith planted there. Without it, weeds of fear and doubt can quickly take over. But with regular prayer, those seeds grow strong and vibrant, producing peace, hope, and trust that flourish even in difficult seasons. So, as you continue your journey from being lost in your thoughts to living with confident trust in God, make prayer your constant companion. Speak honestly, listen patiently, share openly, and thank deeply. This habit will help steady your mind and strengthen your heart in ways you might not expect. As we bring this reflection to a close, I want to gently remind you of the incredible journey we've taken together. From feeling lost in your thoughts to discovering the power of trusting God. It's a journey that doesn't end here but continues every day, in every moment when you choose to lean on God instead of your fears. The promise remains. When you trust God, even your busiest, most tangled thoughts can find peace. Throughout this reflection, we've seen how our minds can become like a foggy forest, confusing and overwhelming. But we also discovered that trust in God is the light that guides us through that fog. The stories of David, Moses, and Daniel show us that even in the hardest moments, trusting God brings courage and hope. Their examples encourage us to be honest with our thoughts, to surrender our worries, and to take steps of faith even when the way isn't clear. We've talked about daily practices, prayer, scripture, gratitude, obedience, and community that help us build a foundation of trust. These aren't just ideas to admire from a distance. They are tools you can use every day to transform your mind and heart. And when you face challenges like anxiety, waiting, or spiritual exhaustion, remember that you are not alone. The Bible offers comfort and strength, reminding you that God's peace is available to guard your heart and mind. Perhaps the most important lesson is learning to trust God's timing. It may be different from what you want or expect, but it's always perfect. While you wait, God is working both around you and within you, shaping you into the person He created you to be. And prayer, the deep, consistent, open conversation with God, is the lifeline that connects you to His peace and guidance. So today, I want to invite you to take a step forward. Start where you are, with your thoughts, your doubts, and your hopes. Open your heart to God. Talk to Him honestly. Listen for His voice. Trust that He is with you, even when the path is unclear. You don't have to have everything figured out to trust Him. You just have to be willing to take one step at a time. Remember, you are not alone in this journey. God walks beside you, ready to carry your burdens and calm your restless mind. You have a community of believers who stand with you, and you have the strength to grow through every challenge. Let this be your prayer today. Lord, I surrender my thoughts and fears to you. Help me trust you more each day. Fill me with your peace that surpasses all understanding. Guide my steps and keep me anchored in your love. When you say these words, mean them with all your heart, knowing that God hears you and is faithful to answer. As you move forward, may you find freedom from the maze of your thoughts. May your mind become a place of peace, hope, and confident trust in God. And may your life be a testimony to the power of faith that transforms fear into courage and confusion into clarity. Thank you for taking this time to reflect and grow with me. If this message has touched your heart, I encourage you to carry it with you throughout your day and to share it with someone who might need to hear it too. Together, let's walk the path of trust and peace, knowing that with God we are never truly lost. May God bless you richly and fill you with His peace now and always.